Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. This missing college student, Pittsburgh college student, Sudiksha Konanki, it is now spread to over a week. Thursday was a full week. Now, this investigation, of course, is all hands on deck. They are investigators, of course, are searching all over, taking all kinds of leads in regards to what happened to Sudiksha Konanki. And they even sort of use the term person of interest relative to a young man named Joshua Reby, who is a college student from Iowa that was the last person seen with her. He's been interviewed numerous times, and in fact, he's still being held in his hotel room in the Dominican Republic in regards to this investigation. At some point, he's done what we would call in law enforcement as lawyering up. And I don't think in any way that should have any of us point that toward his guilt or innocence. But the point is that he has cooperated and he has been interviewed numerous times. If this was the United States and he lawyered up, it would be the end of the interviews. There's no more interview, but they're still interviewing him in the Dominican Republic, and he's still been cooperating, although he's refusing to answer certain questions. And again, I don't think that impinges upon his guilt or innocence. And we'll get into that a little bit, but we'll question the methods here and what may have happened. And of course, we all want to see them find this missing college student, Sudiksha Konanki, a tragic situation. And we'll talk about some of the possibilities, the investigative steps they are taking, the investigative steps they should be taking. Till then, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Mando Whole Body Deodorant. Mando, the thing I like most about Mando Body Deodorant is that it lasts all day and leaves me feeling clean and fresh. It doesn't quit even under the harshest heat and humidity. The fresh feeling keeps me dry and confident. No need to worry about unsightly sweat stains. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code POLICE, police in capital letters, at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. So, folks, this story, of course, is so tragic in so many ways. College students going away for the break between semesters. They go to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, and this poor girl, Sudiksha, winds up missing. And this man on her left here who they're not saying specifically he's a person of interest, but he's being held. So what are we as the general public to assume? If he's not a person of interest, why is he being held in the Dominican Republic? True, he was the last person seen with Sudiksha, but does that make him a person of interest? Well, it's part of the investigative process. So let me play this from a local news station, and we'll get it up on the screen.
Dominican authorities that's providing new information about this spring break mystery. A photo obtained exclusively by NBC News of the interview with Joshua Reeb. He's the last person known to have been with 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student Sudiksha Konanki. He says he and a friend introduced themselves to Konanki and her girlfriends at a bar where the group drank pink tequila shots, then went to the beach in the early morning hours. He said two of Konanki's friends sat on beach chairs, but he says he and Konanki waded into the ocean, telling investigators, quote, "We were in waist-deep water, talking and kissing a little. Next," he said, "a big wave came and hit us both, and with the rising water, it swept us out to sea." The investigator asking, "What happened next?" "As soon as we were able to surface, we tried to call for help, but there was no one there," said the young man. Reeb says he then used his lifeguard training to get them both back to shore, adding, "I swallowed a lot of water. I could have lost consciousness several times. When I finally reached the ground on the beach, I pulled her in front of me. She wasn't out of the water as it was up to our knees. She was walking at an angle in the water. The last time I saw her, I asked if she was okay. I didn't hear her answer because I started vomiting all the seawater I'd swallowed." Reeb told investigators after becoming ill, he looked around, didn't see Konanki, and assumed she'd left the beach. He fell asleep there and didn't return to his room until 9:30 that morning. The investigator asking, "How did you find out the girl disappeared?" The witness replied, "My friend asked me if I knew where the girl was. I told him I thought she'd gone to her room, and he told me she never returned." On the advice of his attorney, Reeb declined to answer a number of questions, including what he thought about Konanki's disappearance. The extensive search for the missing pre-med student continues. Now, Joshua Reeb's parents just issuing a statement this evening, reading in part, "We express our deep sorrow and solidarity of the family of Sudiksha Konanki during this painful time. We share the hope that Sudiksha will be found as soon as possible." His parents also say their son has been fully cooperative, but has, quote, "been detained under irregular circumstances and kept under police surveillance in his hotel room." They also expressed concern that he had been questioned before that Wednesday interview without proper translators and legal counsel, and they say that is why they have now hired an attorney there to represent him. And one last footnote, you may notice that we're no longer showing that security camera video of Konanki and Reeb. Her parents have asked that it not be used.
So the question is, what next for investigators? Do we believe Joshua Reeby? And what can they continue questioning him? There's got to be more investigative steps taken in this case. And what do I mean by that? Well, how about Joshua's cell phone? We need to get a search warrant on that. How about Sudishka, her cell phone, her friends' cell phones, the friends of Joshua? All of those things require court orders, and they all require time. Interview canvases of the hotel, handing out flyers. Has anyone seen Subjiskia? These are all investigative steps. And of course, what's already been happening, let's also remember Thursday, this past Thursday was 7 days. So we're into, this is the 9th day that Sudiksha has been missing. So something bad happened here. So where do investigators go? Where do they keep going? Of course, they got to keep searching the waterways, keep searching the ocean, because the answer could be there, could be in the ocean, but a very difficult investigation. All of these investigations involving water, involving these resorts, they take a lot of time. Nothing happens overnight. Nothing happens immediately. And of course, everyone recalls the investigation of Natalie Holloway and how that turned out to be so bad. And it turned out that she was, in fact, murdered. They're not saying that in this case. Could that change? Yes, it could change. And they're not saying that Joshua Reeby is a person of interest or a suspect. At least the Dominican Republic police aren't saying that. But is there guilt because he was the last person to see Sadiqa alive? This is from ABC News.
Breaking news from the Dominican Republic. ABC News has obtained a transcript of the interrogation of a person of interest in the investigation into a missing American. Police say the man was the last person to have seen Sadiqa konanki before she disappeared on the island. ABC's Ariel Reshef is on the phone from Punta Cana right now. Ariel, this transcript has tons of details in it. What sticks out to you?
It does, Diane. First and foremost, we should make clear that he is not considered a suspect at this point, but ABC News confirming 24-year-old Joshua Reeby told Dominican prosecutors he and konanki kissed, and then he tried to save her life when they got caught up in a big wave. They were on the beach after a night of drinking. He told prosecutors in detail what they had been drinking and that it was quite substantial amounts. He said that he was holding her under his arm and swimming. It was hard. He was a pool lifeguard and not an ocean lifeguard, he told prosecutors. But after trying to get her to safety, he thought he had gotten her to shore. He says he saw her walking at an angle out of the water. He yelled to see if she was okay. He says he didn't hear a response and at that point succumbed to vomiting after inhaling a lot of seawater. And then he passed out on the beach, is what he told prosecutors, and only woke up to a sunburn and mosquitoes, and then kind of went back disoriented to his room the next morning. Police say that they have found konanki's clothes and her shoes on the beach. There was no sign of any struggle. Authorities in the Dominican Republic believe it's likely that she did drown. Diane?
So what do the police expect to do from here, Ariel?
Well, they have had an all-hands-on-deck approach to searching. We ourselves saw helicopters overhead, and we've learned that they are searching the reefs for any potential sign of her. And the president here in the Dominican Republic has ordered a full-throttle, full-scale investigation, and we've been talking to sources who say that that could take up to 6 months.
All right, Ariel Reshef for us in Punta Cana.
So horrible, right? Imagine you're the parents of Sadiqa konanki. And for that matter, imagine you're the parents of this young man, Jacob Reeby. If he is in fact innocent, then your son is being held there. And why, if he's not, even though they say he's not a person of interest or a suspect, why are they still holding him? And if he in fact has lawyered up, as we say, invoked counsel, why are they still questioning him? Those are some of the questions I have. Does his story sound believable? Is his story believable? That's some of the things I would like to ask. How believable is his story? Is he lying? Is there anyone that can challenge his story? What can they challenge his story with if it in fact is not true? And that's what investigators do, is that they challenge the story with other truths, and they don't have anyone to challenge this story with. They don't have any witnesses to challenge this story. So how can they say that his statement is true or false? Can they say that? And the thing is, I don't think they can. I don't think they can question to say that he's lying, because what he is saying is plausible. It's absolutely plausible. I want to play this from Law and Crime, who they question his statement and they question his veracity and they question whether or not he is in fact telling the truth. And this is what investigators do. We'll put this up on the screen here.
Reeby reportedly used that response to several more questions in this interview with law enforcement. The questions included, quote, "What do you think about the disappearance? Did you know the young woman? Do you remember if the young woman made any gestures or screamed while in the sea? Did you report to authorities or the hotel what happened with you and the girl on the beach? Did you tell your friend what happened with you and the girl on the beach? All which the report says he answered, quote, "My lawyers advise me not to answer that question, and I will rely on them." The report said investigators told Reeby that he did have a right not to answer questions. He also said he didn't remember how long they were on the beach for because he didn't have his phone or how long they were in the water. Reeby said he was sleeping in his room when his friend asked if he had seen Sudiksha, and he said he hadn't and thought she had gone back to her room. It's important to note, once again, that Josh Reeby is not a suspect, and this is not a criminal investigation. And it does appear that he has been cooperative in the more than a week since Sudiksha went missing.
So the thing is, yes, it's not a criminal investigation, but from someone who has worked in homicide for 10 years of my 27-year police career, this investigation could turn on a dime into a criminal investigation. And based on the fact that he could say something, and that's why he invoked counsel. Now, if this was the United States and he was being questioned by detectives and he mentioned to the lawyer that he wanted counsel, that the interview is over. It's over. But in the Dominican Republic, they're still questioning him, even though he has an attorney. In the United States, that would be a no-no. Let me go back to this because we have a former NYPD investigator that gives his perspective on this.
To do more to investigate the possibility of a kidnapping or an abduction. Joining us now to talk more about this is former NYPD detective and host of the Gold Shields podcast, Tom Smith. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Interesting to read through this transcript that was first released to this Dominican television station. You've been in many interviews before, and when lawyers are present, again, he's not a suspect. He's just a witness, according to Dominican prosecutors. What stands out to you?
Yeah, you know what stands out is the detail that he remembers certain parts, but then when he gets pressed on other parts, he kind of deflects to his lawyer, which to me is always a red flag, because if you're seriously concerned about someone you were with literally minutes or hours ago that is now missing, and you would have no involvement with it, you'd be more forthcoming. And that's not the case. He goes through just the details of the wave and pulling her out of the water and then her kind of walking sideways and then forgets everything else after that. That, to me, as an investigator that has done thousands of interviews, a red flag for me.
Yeah, because part of me looks and says he's in a foreign country, doesn't understand the laws there. You get a lawyer to help you, which is certainly your right. But it was like some of the I understand that there might be some civil action potentially one day down the line if maybe he didn't report it to the authorities of what had taken place on the beach. I mean, what could be the motive for not answering some of those specific questions that were put out in this interview?
Yeah, there could be a number of reasons. One, let's go with the innocent part, that he's scared. He doesn't want to get in trouble for something he didn't do. You know, you could get very wrapped up into leading an investigation in a certain direction by just your statements of pointing the finger at you. And let's just say that's not.
You know, Tom Smith is 100% right here. And just as what I said before, he could say the wrong thing inadvertently and be innocent because he's scared. He was drunk too, you know. I'm not trying to be his attorney, but could there be foul play here? Could there be? Yes, but I think it's leaning more, in my opinion right now, and I have been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. This looks more to me like a drowning. However, can we criticize Joshua's actions? If the story about trying to drag her out of the ocean, that he had passed out, he was vomiting, he had swallowed a lot of water, and he saw her walking in about knee-deep part of water, and he thought she was okay, and then he passes out. I don't know. It could be true. It could not be true. But that's where more investigation is needed in this case.
Not what the case is, but the other part is being involved in one way or another. Did she meet somebody else after that? Did someone else approach them? You know, those are all factors that are part of this investigation. And him being the only person in that area, as you know, to this day that we know of, you know, his testimony, his interview, and his statements are very, very important. So if you're not involved, you would want to do everything you could and say everything you could to help the investigation, not deflect to your lawyer, which he did towards the end of this.
You know, I agree with Tom, but I disagree with him too, because once you've been interviewed and you've made a statement and they keep bringing you back again and again, no, that's I'm done. I'm done talking to you. I gave my statement. What I told you was true. I'm trying to help you, but now I'm done. I'm not making any more statements, because after that, they could use the term that attorneys use all the time. Potentially, they're on a fishing expedition, and he says one wrong thing. And look, I'm pro prosecution, but also this young man, if this was in the United States and he lawyered up, the interview's over. So how many times are they going to keep interviewing him? And that's why his parents got him an attorney. And I'm also, besides a retired law enforcement, I'm also a parent. And if this was one of my sons, I would get them a lawyer immediately, you know? So yeah, Tom Smith is I agree with him, and yet I also disagree with him.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well, because the questions were, it was like, when did you tell your friend about what happened? I think was one of the questions, which seems like a pretty, you know, with the X's and O's of the day and what took place. And now too, when I look at the timeline, because originally, and a lot was through media reports, ABC News has that last week that this was going to be investigated likely as a drowning, that they had been taken away by a big wave. And then that seemed to be the point that we last saw her. Now it's this image that he lays out of he was getting sick. He, right before he threw up, looked up and saw her walking away in knee-deep water, and then that's it. If you're an investigator, how do you approach that? Because that seems to open up a whole new world of possibility of what potentially happened after.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go into, you know, creating a timeline. One of the first things I thought of and growing up sometimes down the Jersey Shore as a kid was, what was the tide like? What was the ocean like at that time? And you can pinpoint whether it's high tide, low tide, or whatever it might have been, the history of big waves in that area. You know, there's some resorts, as you know, that.
You know, he's 100% correct, and we've been down this road before. Apparently, the tide at the time where this event occurred, it was high tide, and the water was quite rough. In fact, since January at this resort, 4 people have drowned. So it gives you an idea of how rough the water is at this location, and that it is no joke. And I'm not, you know, again, I'm not giving him a defense, but there's no indication whatsoever at this point, that there's any foul play. That, you know, I'm sure they've looked into Joshua's background. He's a student. He was a wrestler. He was a good student. He was an athlete. There's no indication. There's no evidence of any foul play at this point. Does that mean that this couldn't do a 360 and there could be? No, it's very early on in the investigation. This investigation could take quite a long time. You know, News Nation a couple of days ago had one of our favorite talking heads, we call him, retired FBI agent, and he was the head of the FBI scuba team when he was there, and this Bobby Ciccone. I'm going to play a little bit of Bobby Ciccone because he gives a lot of possibilities in regards to the drowning.
What would divers look for in the ocean? There are strong currents there.
That's right, Elizabeth. And you normally you won't put divers in the water unless you have a finite area to search. So unless you've narrowed it down to an area where you think this person may be. And as you've seen some of these helicopter shots, the water there is crystal clear. You can actually search from the air with those drones you mentioned and with those helicopters you saw on your shot there, how crystal clear that water is. So if there's a body down there, you could probably see it. The thing you want to know is where it could have drifted to. You want to know the prevailing winds, the prevailing currents in that area, and so where that body might have drifted. Because over a number of days, that body's going to move. You're not in a lake, you're not in a river, the body is going to move. And so you want to know which way it's moving. And then you want to concentrate your searches in that direction.
The waters in this area can get rough, even though it looks pristine and beautiful in this video and these pictures that we're showing you. 4 tourists were just swept away and drowned 2 months ago, right around this area. It was worth saying, though, authorities recovered their bodies soon afterwards. They have not found hers.
That's right. That's what's strange about this, is that her body has not surfaced yet and drifted either to the shore, either up or down that beach somewhere. So that is unusual to go this long and not. And like you said, there's a very recent example of just several weeks ago of that happening and the bodies being located. So you're doing 2 parallel investigations. You're doing one on the drowning and one on the possible foul play, and both are kind of moving in the same direction. The interviews with that young man from Iowa are crucial, not only on the foul play side, but on the search side. I want to know, what was she wearing? Where was she in the water exactly? How far out she was, and things like that, because that'll all determine if she went under a rogue wave. When and where it happened is crucial. The last known spot is going to be your starting point from where you start your search.
This 24-year-old man says that he got out of the water, that he was feeling sick, that he'd had too much to drink, and that he eventually passed out on the beach. Apparently, the woman's sarong was found on a lounge chair, but there were no signs of a struggle of any kind. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, look, the physical evidence, or lack thereof, but the physical evidence that you do see, like you said, her sarong not ripped, if it's not ripped or anything like that, and there's no overturned furniture with blood on it or anything like that, it matches his story in that they were together in the wave. They were both heavily drinking that night. And she got knocked by a wave. They both got knocked by a wave. He was able to probably hands and knees drag himself out of the water, but he was so inebriated that he could barely get to a lounge chair to fall asleep or pass out. And then he wasn't thinking about her. I mean, that's his story. I'm saying not that that's what happened, but his story does match up with what we know so far, until we come across something else that will indicate foul play. That's what you have to go on. So they're smart to keep the dogs on the beach and extend up and down the beach, keep the drones going, keep the helicopters up, keep the boats in the water. It's a little too soon to have divers in the water because you don't know exact spot, but you can use boat-towed sonar, which looks very far out, and you can analyze that sonar data. So there are a lot of things you can do to be looking for her in the water now, while the possible criminal investigation is going along on land, talking to the people they were with that night and that kind of stuff.
The FBI is now on the case, and I'm just curious, given all your experience, not just in the FBI, but as an FBI diver, is it possible if she drowned that we will never find her body?
Unfortunately, that is possible. And when you're talking about the ocean like this, you have the Atlantic Ocean to the north, you have the Caribbean Sea to the south. So you have, 2 huge bodies of water amassing there, and you have this kind of strait between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. So you do have areas where that body could be, drift out to sea under the water. And quite frankly, in warmer Caribbean waters, the sea life is very active, and a human body breaks down in the seawater, and it can be consumed often by sea life. It could be that we never find her.
Oh, it's just so heartbreaking for the konanki family. This comes as, we've got tens of thousands of American kids heading down to the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, all these places for spring break. There's a real message here. She was on spring break with some friends of hers from the University of Pittsburgh. You've got to be careful on these trips, and you've got to be careful when you've been drinking.
So that's a report from News Nation. It was actually a couple of days ago when perhaps it was at the 7th day when she was missing for 7 days. So we are no further along in this investigation in regards to finding Sudishka Konanki. So we pray for her and her family. Whether this case goes the way of a criminal investigation or it still stays as a missing person, time will tell. Until then, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
One episode just ain't enough.